The morning of July 20th, 2022, and it's been a week or two since I've done a garden walkthrough, so I thought I'd do one this morning. It's kind of nice. It was a very dry month leading up to the last week or so, and then we got some very badly needed rains, and that was great because things were really getting pretty crispy here, and now things have greened back up a bit. I think the herbaceous perennials look better, the trees look better. I was really glad for that rain. So it was cloudy until just a minute ago, and now the sun's coming out. Of course, cloudy would be better for taking video. Let's see, not much to show here. This peach tree, fruits are not ripe yet, but they're sizing up. They're probably not quite, they're probably 2/3 the size. Looking toward the road, not a lot to note there. Gummy berry harvest is finished. Monardas are starting to bloom now. You'll see lots of those everywhere. They've been blooming for a week or more, so they're kind of in full blossom right now. I think this peach tree, this little one, had a borer problem. You can see it's got a lot of damage on the bark down here. Got girdled a bit, and then it's also got borer problems. Peaches are just a pain in the ass. They don't live very long. This is a white fleshed peach. I don't think there's any fruit on there this year. Tree has not grown very much, but something new to show. The first blossoms on these rows of Sharon bushes in the hedgerow, and you don't know what color those are going to be until they start flowering. So that's the kind of pretty pinkish color. And there's another one down there that looks like a similar color. So as we walk in here, got catalpa tree, 2 of them growing up. Got some butterfly milkweed below that, kind of right in the middle of flowering. We've got a cultivar pawpaw here. I'm letting quite a bit of shade grow up around it for the moment. Maybe next year I'll cut this catalpa back. This is to the south, so looking due south right now. Got catalpa here. This is a coppice regrowth. I think this is the 3rd year of regrowth. See if I can come back from this and you can see kind of the form of it. But it's about 15 feet tall. They grow back pretty vigorously from a good root system. And there's one back there. So this is kind of a thicket over here. And the reason it's so lush is because there were wood chips and leaves dumped here for years, and a lot of that stuff sat on the ground for a long time and made for a more fertile soil than what the site has generally. So yeah, this is more Monarda fistulosa. I've got tons of that everywhere. This is an interesting experiment or mistake, I don't know what you want to call it. I planted potatoes into some of these piles of leaves years ago, and it seems like every year I keep missing some and they keep regrowing. So a couple weeks ago, after we got one of the rains, the first rain I think, I scythed a bunch of tall weedy grass that was over here, mulched these potatoes with it, and yeah, it seems that every year I've got potatoes that come back here. A couple things to show here. This is an interesting blackberry, but it's a white fruited blackberry, and they're pretty small. I don't know if it's because my site just sucks or that's the cultivar. This is a little smaller than maybe the average or the potential yield of this is, but this is a Luther Burbank selection of blackberry. There's another one in there. It's a little bit bigger, kind of tart. Oh, I'm getting snagged on these things, but interesting. This is also a Luther Burbank raspberry. It's like a purplish raspberry. This is also from my friend Trevor Newman. So you can see it's got the typical mushy red raspberry kind of texture to it. Pretty good flavor, but yeah, I don't really like red raspberries because they just fall apart and turn to mush and stain your hands. So we'll go out of the thicket here. Got a little currant bush here. It's been mulching it quite a bit, but it's not growing all that well. It's got some leaf problems. Got a cup plant behind that. Got lots of cup plant over here. Come through. Got wild Petunia, native, is that right? I think that's the native Petunia there. It's got kind of a fuzzy quality to the whole plant. Excuse me. There's New Jersey tea, finished flowering. That's the leftovers of its flowers. This is a serviceberry tree above it. The New Jersey tea would probably like to have more sun than it's getting. It's probably too shaded. So we've got a wildflower garden there. That was planted from plugs. First year of this garden, so 12 years ago. This will be its 13th growing season. And the palette of plants here has kind of evolved and simplified. A lot of the original plants are gone. There's a few weedy things like trees that are coming in. I've got to get those out. Oaks and pines. But yeah, this used to have more species in it, and a lot of them have not stood the test of time. Actually, this compass plant has never grown very large. And it's interesting because I've got one in the backfield that excuse me, is much larger and flowers. This one, I don't think it really flowers. So we're panning over to the west here. Got a pawpaw tree, one of the remnant pawpaw trees from the power line construction. For anyone who doesn't know, this whole front part of the garden was all bulldozed and scraped down to bare compressed sand, subsoil, 3 years ago. So we kind of started from scratch. This whole hedgerow had to be replanted under the power lines, and all this stuff is pretty much replanted wildflowers. And there's some woody perennials in here, little serviceberry, hawthorn, got hazelnuts, we've got gumi. This is starting to flower now. I'll show this off. This is wild senna, and there's another one, better one over here that's a little bit taller and bigger. So these have yellow, they're in the bean family. They've got little cute yellow flowers on them. And this dies to the ground every winter, but it is a semi-woody nitrogen fixing species. It likes more moisture than we've got here, so it's not like a species that thrives here, but it will kind of grow. Another little pawpaw there. Used to have a nice pawpaw kind of like right where I'm standing, but that got spaded out and moved to the other site next door. Wildflower garden. I'll pan over this way. This is a pretty coneflower that's flowering now. Can't remember if this is called gray-headed coneflower. I have to look. It's got these really fine leaves on it, and really nice looking flower. There's more of the typical coneflower, the Echinacea purpurea, I think. But this was all seed mixture. There's a couple things that came back through the destruction that just had deep perennial root systems and came back. But most all this stuff was seeded in. I put down some leaf mold and compost, seeded it, did not add the grasses to the seed mixture because I've learned the hard way that if you do that, you'll have all grasses in a few years and almost no wildflowers. Here are a couple American plum sprouts, and actually have a few little fruit on those this year. The main tree got moved into the back field way back there near the thicket of American plum. Here's a white currant. Doesn't look great. The plant doesn't look very good either. A few fruits on there this year. There's a little peach tree, autumn olive, cultivar autumn olive with yellow fruit. And it is making some little fruits this year, although it's late in forming. Be curious to try those. I've never had them. Little clove currant. This has some fruits now that are just about ready to pick. They get pretty much black when they're ready, and it's a great fruit. Native. Ooh, pretty tart. Kind of astringent. Nice mullein here. The flowers always get these kind of dirty appearance after they flower, but real nice plant. I leave those growing wherever they grow, wherever they show up. There's a red fruited apple cultivar, not growing very well. Let's see. Oh, up here in this tree, there's an orchard Oriole. So this tall, skinny pear tree here has a nest in the top of it. You probably can't see it, but it's up near right near the top. And from my bird ID app, I've learned that that is an orchard oriole, and it's I'm disturbing it right now. It's freaked out that I'm near the nest, so I'm not going to hang around here. But that's what's chirping, if the bird ID app can be believed. So I'm going to make my way here. This is a false indigo. Here we've got a little leaf linden that's just finished flowering a week or two ago. Tall tree is a chestnut. It had a few flowers this year, but I don't know that it'll have any nuts because I don't think anything was around close enough to pollinate it. What's going on over here? There's a lot of Monarda. You'll see tons of Monarda everywhere. Planted a couple new hazelnuts here and transplanted a good, that's my good black raspberry or the golden fruited one, probably the black one right there. Got nanny berry here, large European style hazelnut there. Chestnut, I'm sorry, hazelnut in the understory. Serviceberry is the taller tree. So this area is looking pretty good at this time of year. We've got tons of Monarda. We've got daylilies going strong. We've got Heliopsis here, fall sunflower. The wild roses, a couple days ago, you might have still seen a few of them. They were just behind over there and really pretty pink flowers, but they are finished in that spot. This man, this peach has got some peaches that are sizing up, and you know they've got all kinds of problems, but that's got some good color to it and some good size. So I don't expect that this tree will survive any longer than this year. I'll be very surprised if it does, but it's trying to bear a few fruit for me. That's very, very nice of it. Another little leaf linden tree here. I don't want to shoot into the sun, so I'm not going to face that direction. So yeah, some Monarda is not flowering yet. It's just about to open, so it's good to have them kind of staggered like that. My messy nursery area, got a lot of stuff potted up over here. My water tanks are back to being almost full, which is great, or at least half full. This is a bird planted or incidental black raspberry here. The fruit on it's not bad, but it's not anything really special. My golden fruited raspberries are basically done fruiting. They're kind of dried up over there. See these seedling beds. See the chestnuts, they always start to look chlorotic after a certain time. I think it's something wrong with the soil mixture. I need to acidify that or something. Here is an elderberry that's growing out from underneath this air prune bed. I don't know how the hell I'm gonna ever get this thing out. It's growing from through the hardware cloth. That's pretty funky. I might just take cuttings of it and grow those instead. We've got persimmon, American persimmon seedlings. Got some hazelnuts back there. These taller things are Nanking cherries. Yeah, the wild rose back there, it's basically done. There's just a couple blooms still hanging on. Speaking of chlorotic, these American persimmon seedlings look really bad. And what's weird is, you know, there are hazelnuts growing in here and they look fine. So I'm not sure if it's an acidity problem or what, but some other plants that grow in this same bed, grapes look okay, Nanking cherries look okay. But these particular persimmons, maybe just because they're so densely planted, they don't look good. So I need to try to diagnose that. So yeah, this is my original hedgerow that did not get demolished, and this is looking pretty good overall. You know, it averages about 15 feet wide, and I'd say 6 to 15 feet tall. It kind of varies as it goes depending on the genetics of the individual plants. Some hazelnuts will get 10, 12 feet tall, and some seem to only get 4 to 6 feet tall. Pampas grass, bunch grasses, looking pretty good. And you'll see an ocean of Monarda over here. And I will pan around. Got some water in the tank finally. Last video I did not have this gutter hooked up, so that's good to have that finally online. Getting more rainwater because it was getting very dry over here. Got a tall tree there is an American persimmon, male unfortunately, but maybe can be grafted. So this seedling bed, let's see here. These willows are just going apeshit. These things are actually, they totally shaded out between them and these elderberries here. These elderberries are cuttings of one that you'll see in a minute. But hiding in here, there are some hickory seedlings, but they sprouted kind of later and they never really got a chance to grow. I should hack these elderberries or willows back to get them some sunlight. Otherwise they're not going to amount to much, but maybe that'll make for an easier transplant later. So yeah, a couple kinds of willows in here. We've got a few kinds of elderberries, a couple clove currants here. This elderberry's got some problems. I don't know if it's an insect bothering it or what, but just this one plant, so I don't really care. I've got multiples of that plant. This is kind of growing into a thicket here. We'll pan around. Pokeweed. It's going from flower to fruit here. Birds like that fruit. I just kind of leave that grow wherever it wants to. I eat the greens in the springtime maybe. This elderberry, I believe this is Hochberg. It's basically done flowering, although it does kind of keep making flowers throughout the latter part of the summer. So, and some of these umbels are insanely large. I mean, that one's probably 10 inches across in total. So you've got that, you've got some wild grape growing on it. This is a wild fox type grape. I've shown this before on a different video. So I'm looking forward to trying those this year. I also got some of the native clematis and then some weedy morning glory type thing on there. This is the native clematis, Virgin's Bower. So yeah, this former garden bed area is now a riot of Monarda. There's some catnip flowering over there. Most of the woody perennials are hanging on. There's a bunch of honeyberries in here, some Nanking cherries I planted. This is the Chinese tune tree. There's a bunch of currants. Got red currants, black currants, clove currants, hazelnut up there. That is a Japanese angelica tree over there, which is a spring vegetable. So I think I'm going to walk through here. I have not been over to this blueberry pawpaw area in a while, and I didn't do a walkthrough this morning to look and see what I was going to talk about, so apologies if this is just kind of off the cuff. I don't know if these blueberries have any fruit this year, probably not much. Well, I guess I could talk about this wildflower bed. You can see I mentioned earlier that most of the wildflower beds I've planted from seed just ended up turning into a bunch of grasses, and that's mostly what's happened to this bed here. At first it was a lot of forbs, and now it's mostly grasses. This is a wild quinine. This is a cool plant. I'd like to have more of these. You know, I've said that years ago and never got more of them. But it hasn't really seemed to reseed itself either. We've got wild indigo, false indigo, sorry, over there. We've got several blueberries here. There's probably looks like a few fruits on these. But just not super happy where they're at. Excuse me. Too dry here. Yeah, they're just not that thrilled to be here. Had some serious dieback. That one doesn't look good. This one looks skeletal. This one, it's basically just the little ground layer. Huh. I don't even remember what this thing is. This is crazy. It's something in the sunflower family, but I thought maybe it was a sunchoke, but sunchoke flowers don't have that central disc, and it's way too early for sunchoke flowers anyway. Yeah, this blueberry looks like shit. There's a little one down there that I got from my friend Russ that you can't even see is still there. So yeah, not a big blueberry year here. Used to have some mushroom logs over here. This is beyond those pine trees is my aunt's yard. Over that way is the house that we are renovating to live in. Big catalpa tree here. This planted itself. I did not plant that. Okay, we'll walk around the trail here. Have not mowed recently, so the trails are not cleared, but should be okay. So lots of Monarda over here. This was a wildflower bed that was planted the first year, 2010, from plugs, not seed. And it's kind of simplified as well. You know, the palette of plants here is just maybe half of what it started as. There's some kind of very early flowering goldenrod here, which it's almost depressing. It's like, well, are we that far through the summer yet? Doesn't have much smell. But whatever this goldenrod is, it's become a prominent feature over here. Of course, Monarda. Got some sassafras I got to pull out of here. I don't want this to be forest. Ooh, look at this beauty of a butterfly over here on the Monarda. Black and blue. I don't want to bother it too much, but let's get a little closer. Quite the wing action on that thing. Okay, so this is just a self-reseeded forest for the most part over here that's regenerating. This red bud I think I planted, and it looks like a hazelnut has come in at the same time. I don't know if I want the hazelnut there because it's kind of going to grow into the path, you know, as wide as they like to get, but we'll see. I could still move it at this size probably if I catch it soon enough. I could sit here and film that butterfly for 20 minutes, but I won't do that. Monarda tends to get powdery mildew pretty badly every year, no matter what the weather is, especially ones that are growing in part shade, but it doesn't seem to really affect the plant that much, so I don't do anything about it. It's just part of its life cycle here, it seems. Got some pawpaw trees there. There's a nice large one. There's a really pretty nice one straight over that way. Those are two of the biggest ones I've got. Another smaller one here. These are my Catalpas that are supposed to be growing as a coppice, but not really. Go through the dappled sunlight here. A few little teeny tiny sad plum trees from Oikos here. They've never done much. They've probably been there for the better part of 10 years. This bunch grass here is little blue stem, which is a really common grass on this site, but this is kind of how it regrows. Like, say if you'd mown it early in this season, has that pretty lush green growth for a while. So this little plum tree, I don't see any fruit on it. I'm pulling out this horse nettle, I think that's what they call that. It's a stupid plant, I hate it. It spreads by rhizomes and very annoying to deal with. Here's a serviceberry in the overstory. Somebody planted an oak underneath it. I want to get rid of that because I don't want an oak there. A couple of my grafts, I showed those in the last video. Those, the deer are eating all the leaves off of them. I got to get some protection on those. Here's a hawthorn that I didn't plant. It looks very hawthorn-like. It's got hawthorn-shaped leaves. I don't see thorns though, so it could just be an apple that looks like a hawthorn. Watermelon olive with fruit forming. My red-leafed seedling, apple seedling, and this thing is a beauty. And it's interesting because sometimes it looks redder and sometimes it looks greener. It seems to kind of go back and forth in the same growing season. Early on, it looked very red, and then it kind of got more like this greenish color. But now maybe the young growth is very red and it just turns greener as it goes. But here we've got quite a dense thicket. We've got 9 bark in the back. We've got autumn olive, sassafras, false indigo. We've got a really nice hazelnut over here. Ooh, some serious nuts forming on that thing. Look at those clusters. This was a really impressive one last year. This is a special plant here. I'm gonna propagate that one. And then behind all this is a thicket of wild goose plum. It had a strong, vigorous resprouting, suckering action after the main tree was spaded out 3 years ago for the power line expansion. So I've been managing that, and I'm gonna, keep thinning that out somewhat so that it's got more light coming in. Let's see, which way should I walk? I should take a different route just to throw people off. Yeah, what the heck, we'll go this way instead of the predictable way. So this hedgerow was replanted 3 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago? I can't remember. Some of the stuff, like that Rose of Sharon, does not have flowers yet. I'm kind of surprised some of the other ones do. Oh, here's that horse nettle as it's in flower. It's in the tomato eggplant family, but it's covered in thorns, and it's just a super annoying plant. The little fruits, they're like yellow, like tomatillos or brown cherry tomato type fruits. Not edible. What do we got here? This is Virginia creeper. I wanted to make sure this was not poison ivy before I grabbed a hold of it. Yeah, gotta get rid of that. Here's a little remnant wild rose flower. Beautiful. Yeah, flowering at a pretty small size, some of these. Now over here, at one time, all the way down this right-of-way, I planted a staggered pattern of Sunchokes, aka Jerusalem Artichokes, and Downy sunflower. And this is Downy sunflower here, happy little patch of it. And those flowers are going to open in the next few weeks. Looks like you've got one here that's pretty close. And this is a really cool plant. I like it. It spreads by rhizome, not very fast, but it's just a beautiful little flower when it's flowering, and good ground cover. Seems to be okay with the dryish sites like mine. Some brown-eyed Susan and some Monarda. The Sunchokes, there are a few Sunchokes in here that the deer haven't decimated, but I need to come out and whack these Sumacs down, because the Sumacs, you know, they want to grow, they want to keep expanding indefinitely. So it's just a management thing to come out once or twice a year and cut those out so that you've got light where you want light. Okay, more Downy sunflower. I don't think I'll walk through the entirety of the property today. There's not that much good stuff to see toward the back south end anyway. I've got a few pawpaw trees, so I probably need to come and give these some additional water. There's 1, 2, 3 there, and there's another one kind of hiding behind this larger catalpa, and there's several more in here too. Most of them are still alive after so many years. There's a few black locusts here that were planted from seed, and so I kind of limbed those up this winter. I think I planted at least 5 or 10. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I don't know that they're all still alive necessarily, but there's a good number of them anyway. And then there's, of course, all the black locusts that I've transplanted as root suckers, which are suckering profusely and have grown pretty large. Some of them are like 30 plus feet tall. So yeah, this pawpaw doesn't look too bad. There's another pawpaw. There's another one around the bend here behind the cedar tree. Not as big. Yeah, there's one. My outhouse. So I'm going to take a different route today just to keep it a little more exciting. Normally I would turn here and walk around this way, but I'm going to go straight south here, see what's going on in the chestnut block up here. I'm guessing there's not going to be a lot to see there. Never has grown very well. But yeah, in the path, this is all little blue stem grass. You've got spotted knapweed flowering. That used to be a really prominent weed here, and it still is quite a prominent weed. I used to try to manage it a lot more. I'd actually hire kids to come and pick it. And I don't know, I think I've changed my views on that a bit. I've come around to it a little bit. And it doesn't annoy me as much as it used to. So I just kind of leave it and deal with it. You know, I pull it here and there. This is rosin weed. Looks like maybe it got browsed on this side. See how these stems are shorter than these? Probably a deer came along and clipped some of it off. So it looks like it's been flowering for a few days anyway. The whole plant has like a kind of a rough texture to it. Grows pretty well, produces a decent amount of biomass. That's why I planted a whole flat of it one year, I think 38 plants. I'll just give a quick look here. This is my oak savanna. We're looking south here. Got several low tannin oikos oaks in various states of growth. You've got, there's a rosin weed down there flowering, moth mullein flowering there. My persimmon area is over here, extending back to here. Got kind of getting into the walnut area, and I just got 5 new butternut, pure butternut seedlings from the Michigan Nut and Fruit Growers meeting. So I'll probably plant those kind of in this middle area here, which is my, historically is supposed to have been my walnut area. Like here's a black walnut. It was an English walnut graft that I think died, and now it's just a black walnut. So that's kind of useless. I've got, you know, there's a million black walnuts growing everywhere around here. I don't really need to plant more of those. Here's a hazelnut. Not huge nut production on this year, but there's some good stuff in spots. We're looking over toward the thicket of American plum over here. This whole mound of greenery starting over here. You know, some of the trees I've planted in the meantime, these pines and spruces, have grown up pretty well. But yeah, that's all one plant of American plum coming all the way out, you know, to here almost. And then there's one that I transplanted right there that has fruit, and it caught this one for pollination this year. So I'm gonna finally see what the fruits of this thicket are like, because historically it never had a pollinator. So we never knew. There's some wild blackberries turning red over here. Gonna be harvestable soon. There used to be a really nice stand of blackberries around here, and they kind of just all petered out, so that's okay. I'm not that huge of a fan of blackberries anyway. Nice catalpa tree, really badly afflicted serviceberry that's covered with cedar apple rust. You can see all these spots here. Yeah, it doesn't look great. Couple tulip poplars there, red pine, white birch, some kind of spruce. Got 9 bark here. I don't want to shoot into the sun. I'm going to cover with my hand here, so sorry if my hand is in the lens. Damn. Got autumn olive here, chestnut that's resprouted about 10 times. I've kind of written this one off, but we'll see if it ever amounts to anything. I don't have very high hopes for it. That was planted probably 10 years ago. We've got catalpa with a couple of tulip poplars on either side, and then beyond that there's a bunch of chestnuts. Here we've got false indigo, this nitrogen fixer, growing to the south side of a regrafted Asian pear rootstock. This stuff with the whitish downy leaves is the rootstock of an Asian pear that it's never flowered or fruited since the graft died, but we grafted a new, I think it's Ayer's pear on here, and there's 4 now stems to choose from. There's a cedar with lots of cedar apple rust growths, galls, I don't know what you'd call those things, nasty stuff that turns into those little mushroom jelly Sputniks. Apple graft here. This is a thicket of winged sumac, which you can see last year's seed deals. The fruit, and they're going to start forming flowers soon, and then the new fruit, I think I might push the old fruit off when that happens. So now we're walking north down the trail past the outhouse. Toward the road. And this area here is kind of a pecan area. They're pecans mixed with chestnuts. These 2 taller trees in the overstory are wild black cherries that I did not plant, but we're letting them be here for a while, and we're happy to have them, giving some 3D quality to the garden and some shade, some needed shade and protection. Pan over here, nice volunteer oak tree. Again, leave that be for now. Just to the west of that, there's a nice Chinkapin chestnut. So at some point I may cut this oak down, even though it's a beauty, because it might start shading out some of my other stuff. We have an incidental, unplanned persimmon here that I'm still wondering where it came from, whether I planted it or somehow it was mislabeled or something. There's a pecan there, there's a pecan here, another persimmon, mystery persimmon down there. Some more chestnuts and pecans down there. Got a white birch in this tree tube showing some drought stress. So this Chinkapin chestnut, lots of burrs on this thing, probably thousands of them. So we'll see how many of them got pollinated. We don't know that for a while. And actually the nuts never get very large. They're like chickpea or even like pea size. They're very small. This is more of like a Chinese chestnut here. Still got the remnants of some flowers on there and a few burrs. So we'll see also if some of those got caught with pollen. This is that Chinkapin. This big tall beauty back here with the glossy leaves, although it does have some leaf damage this year from insects and or drought. That is the timber chestnut from Oikos. And we've got ironweed that's about to flower. It's starting to kind of form its flowering parts. So yeah, timber chestnut. We've got a autumn olive. We've got some oaks in the tree line here. This is kind of the edge of my west edge of my property. There's some Seguin chestnuts. There's 4 of those here. 2 of them were flowering pretty well, and 2 of them didn't really have flowers. So this chestnut here has started to create a fair amount of shade in its understory. Pan back here. We've got a Aronia there. Catalpa or ironweed. There's a walnut. Might want to manage that and cut it down so that I don't have more walnuts than I want, because I've already got this big walnut here that I didn't plant and didn't really want. I'm going to see what the nuts are like this year. It does have some nuts on it. If the nuts are nothing special, I don't know. It's kind of too small to cut for wood, too big to graft onto. I think it's probably 8 inches in diameter at breast height. There's a redbud. There's a damn, what is that thing called? Hackberry back here that I transplanted. I hate when I can't think of the name of something. Hackberry I put in here. I took this out of my yard and transplanted it in last year, and it's surviving okay. It seems to be hanging in there. Mulberry here that's kind of mostly dead. I'm gonna get some more sun glare here. Lots of bird song. And just to pan down, got some mole tunnels here so you can see what my soil is like. It's pretty sandy. I hate to shoot into the sun like this. Damn. I should bring my real camera out. So we're gonna see the wildflower garden over here. And the moles have really been working on this ground. Got some, this is a black locust sprout. And there's some chestnut behind it. Another chestnut over here, cup plant there. So to show you the difference in regrowth, okay, so this is regrowth of big blue stem, and you can see it's already got this pretty thick single stalk coming up. It wants to flower. Little blue stem doesn't send up thick individual stalks like that. They kind of all grow at one height at the same time. So this wildflower garden, we've got Prairie Dock in full flower. That's these enormous leaves over here. They look almost tropical, and the flowers of that are kind of in full swing right now. Rosin Weed over here is flowering, and let's see, the compass plant does not have any flowering stalks, just rosin weed. Compass plant are those really incised leaves over there. Looks like deer lay in here too, because there's some big flat spots on the ground. I think deer come in here and tramp it down. But yeah, that stuff right there is compass plant. Then we've got more black locust overstory, getting pretty tall. I need to come in and cut that stuff down. Monarda, coneflower. All right, I'm going to walk backwards here. Wild black cherry. We've got a box elder, black locust. Some of this taller stuff is not stuff that's like necessarily food plants for me, but they're just useful to have it in the system for the time being. Little apple that I grafted. This is my test pit pond. It's about 4 or 5 feet deep. Probably no water in the bottom, but it's kind of slumped in so it's hard to see anyway. Here's a wild crabapple that I've grafted onto, and it's got not much foliage this year. Pretty heavy load of apples on it, and a couple of branches I grafted. And I actually thinned these a bit, but it still looks ridiculously overburdened. So that larger apple over there is a graft I did. Here's a little graft I did this spring, but it's just crap. It's probably not gonna even survive. And then there's a couple apples. They don't look very good. This one was grafted, I don't know, 5 years ago or something. This is the first time it's had any fruit. You know, these are supposed to be disease-resistant apples, but it does not mean that they're bug-resistant. That, you know, you've got one of the problems solved, but you know, you still got a whole slew of other problems. Winged sumac here is about to flower. That's what these are going to be. They'll be very ornamental here shortly. I just saw another one of those beautiful blue and black butterflies go by. This chestnut still got a few flowers on it. This one's never done much for me. Not very impressed with it. I'm gonna walk around this way. So this black locust has gotten pretty sizable. I need to probably cut this one down for a fence post. It's large enough. Probably get one or two fence posts, since also that one there, that double trunked one, is kind of overstayed its welcome here, and it's done a great job of providing cover and bird perches and shade, but it's getting to be a little too big for its neighbors. Here's wild Riverbank grape growing on autumn olive and mulberry. I guess there still are a hell of a lot of mulberries out. I thought these things would be about done, but this is like a full crop still. Look at these things. In pretty good size. Let's see what the flavor is like at this. Well, they look kind of dried up. That one doesn't even look ripe, but we'll see. Got a little spider guarding a mulberry there. Still tart. Yeah, so I guess the mulberries have a pretty long season, a month or more. Beautiful ragged old box elder here. It's kind of the totem tree of this whole property. It's falling apart, but really just a neat looking tree. Probably the oldest tree around here. Happy to have that. The soils over here are a little better than on average on this site. It's a slightly different soil type in this corner. So you can see the growth of the cut plant over here is probably 8 feet tall already, and a flower starting. Whereas most of the rest of the garden, the cut plant is more like 4 or 5 feet tall. Mulberries taste a little bland because we had a lot of rain, which is a good thing. Okay, I have some golden raspberries planted over here in the understory, but I think I'm not seeing much of the fruit right now. That's okay, this is one of the stems. Cup plant has got mulberries caught in its little traps there. That's funny. So insects can get drunk when they come to drink the water and the fermented hooch. Okay, black locust, mulberry, redbud, lots of sumac. Got cornus moss, Cornelian cherry. I think these are all cornus moss. I think they were supposed to have been anyway. That, I know these two over here are. The leaves may be a little different. I wonder if the other one is Kusa? No, I don't think so. Anyway, there's a couple of cornus moss over here. Some more mulberry in the overstory. More sumac that I need to deal with. This apple that I grafted, I think this is a, what is it? I lost the tag. Anyway, it's got really bad cedar apple rust. I think this is a monarch. Apparently it's disease resistant, but not to cedar apple rust. So that makes me wonder, should I cut this cedar down that's brushing branches with it, or just let it go and see how it does? Does this have any fruit this year? If it does, this would be the first year that it had. Yeah, there's a couple little fruits up there. Yeah, here's one. They don't look very good. They got some problems. And it's got a weird kind of weeping habit almost. The central leader must have broken off in a windstorm or something. But yeah, pretty severe cedar apple rust on that thing. That's as bad as some of those service berries that I showed. So this is kind of the edge of my property, my neighbor's driveway. I think we're gonna about wrap this video up. And we'll walk out this way. There's some more chestnuts, black locust. Here's a little chestnut that's from a good seedling parent. But yeah, this part of the garden feels nice. It's pretty three-dimensional. It's coming to the point where it's starting to be a management question. You know, there's a tall chestnut there. You know, I'm gonna have to cut some of these trees down to give more light to the things I'm aiming to grow. So this, I think this is a Siberian Elm. This is kind of a junk weed tree. Also, don't really need it in here, so I don't mind cutting that down. Yeah, this chestnut has died and regrown at least once or twice, but now it's about 15 feet tall, so that's cool. We'll see if this is the time that it actually survives. But yeah, these black locust, this black locust, some of these larger ones this winter are gonna have to get dropped, and maybe some of the cherries too, to open up more light. But like in these drought years like this year, I'm really glad to have that overstory to give some shade to the garden, because otherwise it just roasts out here. If it's full sun exposure, it's not good for things. Here's a little chestnut that we transplanted from my friend's yard, Chuan and Liu. It died to the ground and now it's regrowing. This is what the branches used to be, so I'm gonna have to pick a new leader for that. I've got lots of wood chips over here, black locust sprouting out everywhere. I'm gonna turn away from the sun here. Wild carrot as a weed everywhere. I don't mind that. I kind of let it go. Yeah, chestnut, black locust. Almost all the grafted fruit trees I've ever planted here have died, so I'm not really that enthusiastic about those anymore. Up here there was a grafted plum tree that's dead. This peach, I think that's an Alberta peach. I don't know, there might be 1 or 2 peaches on there, but it's never amounted to anything. This is the plum tree. It looks totally dead. Maybe it's got black rot or something. The leaves look really bad. Huh, yeah, so this is the final year for that. Although it was never had a fruit in 10 years, so who cares if it dies? Just a waste of money and time. This little box elder seedling, little hazelnut seedling. The rodents plant hazelnuts for me everywhere, which I don't mind. It's good to have extras. You can always dig those up if they're not in a good place and give them away to people. Sell them if you wanted to. There's a wild black cherry. What do we got here? Oh, this is a nannyberry. This nannyberry got dug up, so it's kind of resprouting a little thicket of nannyberry. Got some hazels here. I'll show you one. I've got one good grape that's grown out of 10 or 12 that I planted. And this is the only one that's shown any real vigor and ever had any fruit on it. I've got kind of this makeshift cage around it because deer were coming and eating all the green grapes. Look at these Japanese beetles. So it's probably not vegan, but Japanese beetles are a little bit of a scourge, so I do kill them occasionally. Okay, so yeah, this grape, I forget the name of it. It might be Frontenac, but I could be wrong. I just call it Vigoro because it's so vigorous, and it seems to root from cuttings pretty well. So yeah, I've got lots of starts of that in my grow bed over here. So that's gonna wrap this up. Good hazelnut production. Hazelnut's a very reliable crop for me. Any dogbane beetles before we close out? Yes. Okay, look at these little gorgeous things, and we'll end on them. So these are the prettiest beetles I've ever seen in nature around here. These only seem to bother dogbane, and dogbane's pretty much a weed, so I don't care. But very cool, very beautiful, otherworldly little beetles. So thank you for watching, and stay tuned for the next tour. Thanks, bye-bye.